When you visit a place called Riot City, you have to expect a certain amount of crime and violence. I feel the same is true of Riot Zone. But besides getting low Yelp scores, what do these two locations have in common? As it turns out, they're practically the same game. The names and details may have changed, but Riot Zone is something of an unlicensed remake of the 1991 Brawler. Don't worry, all this is going to make sense by the end, so turn back now if you don't want to know what happens next, because today we're going to spoil the stories and endings for both Riot City and Riot Zone. This is Game Over, the early years. For a lot of gamers, Streets of Rage was Sega's answer to Final Fight. But if you grew up in a Japanese arcade in the early 1990s, then there might be another beat-em-up that takes that title. I'm talking about Riot City, a brawler developed by West 1 that is so similar to Final Fight that it blurs the line between being a loving homage and a flagrant ripoff. This is the story of blonde-haired Paul and his breakdancing pal Bobby, a couple of narcotics agents who've been investigating a mysterious drug syndicate known as MID, or MID, which makes it sound about 5% cooler. The investigation takes a dark turn when Paul gets a call from his emotionally distraught girlfriend who's been captured by MID and held against her will on a slummy island known as Riot City. It's here where the worst of the worst live, and it's gonna take a miracle, or a lot of tokens, to make it out alive. There's not a deep story here, it's basically get in and get out with your girlfriend. To do that, we punch our way into the enemy's fortified zone, which leads to a brawl in an old abandoned factory. While the factory may have gone unused, the torture dungeon next door seems to still be active. It's here where we come face to face with Tam Tam, who apparently likes to chain his victims up to the wall. This is just the beginning, because our next destination takes us to a very rainy Midtown. Paul manages to find shelter before getting too wet, but it's in a building with a slow-moving elevator. Mid's gang members think they have you trapped, but these narcotic agents have been preparing their entire lives for this kind of mission. The elevator takes them up to the roof, where they see the rest of Riot City in the background. It all ends with a fight against Lee, a kung fu expert that decides to jump to the city streets halfway through the battle. Things get a little weird after we finish punching Lee in the face. Paul and Bobby work their way through a bar so seedy that people have stopped even noticing when a fight breaks out. I guess it just happens that often. Also, this bar has the kind of basement that looks like it's being used for satanic sacrifices and rituals. Wait, is this game about to take a crazy turn into the supernatural? Nope, it's just a basement. Our next stop is the Riot City Casino, a swanky haunt filled with guards and girls in short skirts. Unbeknownst to the agents, they're being pushed towards the casino's wrestling ring, where a live audience has paid good money to see them get their butts kicked by the star attraction, H-Bull. Hey, wait, it's that symbol again. Okay, maybe this is where the demons are gonna show up and everything gets crazy. Nope, it's just a wrestling ring. Now here's something you don't see very often. It's an elevator ride where nobody gets into a fight. What kind of dark magic is this? Anyway, we're in the final push now, because here we are in the secret MID headquarters. If our heroes can punch enough bad guys, maybe they'll be able to save Paul's unnamed girlfriend and stop drugs from flowing into the streets. Like a lot of old school beat-em-ups, the big bad at the end of Riot City is a real thing for Japanese art. Also, that guy turns out to be a real dick. No, really, that's his name, Dick. With his sword and backup guards coming from all sides, this guy is the worst. But don't worry, we eventually kick his butt, and here's what happens next. When West 1 wanted to bring Riot City to home consoles, they ran into a small problem. While they owned the rights to the game, it was Sega who retained the rights to the characters and names. The compromise was a game called Riot Zone, which is essentially the same game, only with enough changes to keep Sega's lawyers happy. Paul and Bobby have been replaced with Hawk and Tony, and those aren't the only two changes. The story takes place in New York City, where Police Chief Jim Hyde has new details about the whereabouts of Boss Man, the evil mob kingpin they've been investigating. He's in a lawless part of town known as the Dragon Zone, but just as Hawk and Tony are about to spring into action, the chief decides to take them off the case. It's too dangerous, and the NYPD has no interest in pushing this any further. But Hawk isn't ready to back down. His girlfriend Candy is being held hostage in the Dragon Zone, so he's more than willing to go it alone. But Tony's not going to let that happen, because he wants a piece of the Boss Man too. Aside from a few levels being rearranged, Riot Zone plays out almost exactly like Riot City. There's the rainy street, the slow-moving elevator, the unused factory, the seedy bar, the weird cult room, the wrestling ring, and Dick's office building. Only now it's a dude named Quinn and not Dick, because, all the bosses are different. Oh, and there's one more surprise, because beating up Quinn unleashes the ghost of Tora, an old samurai who was a statue just a few minutes ago. Finally, the ritual pays off. Here's what happens next. So the TurboGrafx ending is flashier, but I think I got more out of the arcade ending. The cinema itself is pretty short, but I really like how it shows us what happens next while the credits roll. Those pictures we see help to flesh out the characters and make the fight feel a little more important. I mean, neither of these endings are on the same level as Final Fight, but at least they're better than what we saw in the original Streets of Rage. Also, Dragon Zone just sounds a lot cooler than Riot City. Maybe that's not the point. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Game Over, The Early Years. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new episodes every week. Now here's the question I have for you. Which game had the better ending? Riot City or Riot Zone? Let me see your picks in the comments below. As you may have noticed, this episode was pushed to Tuesday. Well, this is also going to be the case next week, because April Fool's Day lands on Monday. Don't worry, we're still going to post new episodes every week. In the meantime, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.